Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the coronavirus impact on employment. My name is Bryan Tordoff, and this is my final project for Business Administration 513 at Western Kentucky University. Without a doubt, the coronavirus has had a significant impact on the employment landscape across the country. Since March, over 44 million people have lost their jobs, or rather filed for unemployment because of coronavirus. This is significant, and this deserves to be studied because we need to figure out where exactly these people are located and what kind of services we can actually provide in order to get them back on their feet working even amid this pandemic. So just to give you a brief overview, I've put together this dashboard here on the first page just to give you a little preview of what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, we're going to be tackling unemployment based on this individual states, break it down by the regions, and see where that trend line is at, whether it's going up or down or staying level. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about options in order to decrease unemployment and increase opportunities for Americans across the country. So my original question was, which states have been most greatly impacted by the coronavirus in terms of unemployment? This was a very broad question because I really wasn't sure. Obviously, I can see the impacts in my own community here in Arizona, and you can see here on this first chart that the unemployment percentage, even back in March, Arizona was actually leading in unemployment, one of the leading states. Here you can see the top 15 states across the United States. And so I wanted to figure out where this impact was having, or where this was having the greatest impact on jobs. So as you can see back in March, the unemployment levels here up in the upper right-hand corner, basically between 3 and 7% for the top 15 states. I believe that the average across the country was right around 4%. According to the official statistic for unemployment. So you can see Alaska is one of the highest states right there at that 7%, and then other notable states here that we're going to continue to revisit and talk about again, Florida, Texas, kind of the southern states, West Virginia, even Connecticut, you can see there. And then kind of as an anomaly, and you'll kind of see this go away throughout the presentation, is Oregon, Idaho, and Montana up there in the northwest. So this is a little preview. This was kind of pre-COVID, really, before most of the shutdowns actually started occurring. So as we move forward, we take a look at April. And April, we can see that Alaska drops off. We can still see in the northwest that impact there. But you can start seeing more of a trend to the northeast. You can see New York pop up and New Hampshire. You can see Delaware there, North Carolina, and then you see more states even in the southeast, Mississippi and Alabama, and again you see Florida there. Another significant impact here in April, the unemployment rate jumped between 9% and 14%. Remember in the last slide it was between 3 and 7%, so this is a significant jump, both in which states are actually experiencing the unemployment and the rate in those states. So as we move forward to May, this is about the worst period so far during the pandemic, at least in terms of unemployment in the United States. Again, you can see up in the northwest, those states, you see Texas come back, West Virginia is still hanging in there, Florida, New York, New Hampshire, so all of these states. And we won't call it a state, but the District of Columbia is also included in this, and you'll see that a little bit more in future slides. But basically, those same states are still retaining those top 15 in the United States status here. So you can see that there's definitely a trend in terms of which states have experienced the worst in unemployment. And again, that number is continuing to go up. In May, it was between 11 and 26%. So this is basically at the height of all the shutdowns, and and the point at which Americans were really not going out, and so businesses really had to cut back on employees. As we move forward to June, the first thing that you notice up in the upper right-hand corner is the rate drops. Now the top 15 states occupy between 3 and 18% as far as unemployment percent rate. Alaska has come back. You still see Oregon, but then you still see those other states that we've kind of talked about: Florida, Texas, New York, those northeastern states. Again, you can't see District of Columbia, but that's up there too. So you can see that these states are persisting in these top 15, and this has really hit these states hard in particular. So we've talked about individual states. Now let's break it down by region, because one question I had when doing this research was there any impact on the states shutting down? So in particular New York, because New York was the big, at least the city of New York was the first big one to really shut down businesses and really promote the social distancing. And I wanted to see if there was any correlation between these big states who are shutting down and those governments enacting those laws basically, and then other governments in neighboring states kind of shadowing that and following in their footsteps. And I think that I've kind of developed a theory here that is the case. So if we look at unemployment by region here, we can see pretty obviously Northeast region was the hardest hit. We see the Southwest as second, the Great Lakes followed by the Southeast, and then eventually the Northwest. So you can see already that the Northeast as a whole has experienced the worst in terms of unemployment, and those are just percentages, so 9%, 5%, and so on. As we go to our next slide, now we're going to take a look in terms of states by region, the top 15 states. So back in March, we see here that most of these bars are green, and this makes it really easy to see. So we see this first one, Northeast region, District of Columbia, 5.2% unemployment. We see other states here in what I've designated the Northeast region: West Virginia, Connecticut, New York, Delaware, Massachusetts. All of these green bars represent the Northeast, and you can see that they pretty much have a lockdown on some of the worst states for unemployment. Other states that you see Oregon in there. We've talked about that. Georgia, Texas, Minnesota, sure. But those are very small one-off states versus, we can clearly see even from the beginning, the Northeast was the hardest hit in terms of unemployment. Now we look at June. So we've gone through the whole pandemic, and we still see the Northeast here hardest hit. We see here on June 27th, District of Columbia is still there at the top. We see them at 18%. New York has jumped up 12%. Massachusetts, Delaware, Connecticut. So those top 5 states are all up in the Northeast. We see Minnesota in there, and then we see the other states kind of below that. So the Northeast we've kind of established that they've been going up in terms of percentage, and they've pretty much had a lockdown in those top 15 states in terms of unemployment. So now we're going to look at where it's trending. So we've established where the unemployment is occurring. Now we need to see where it's going to go next. And so I wanted to compare where it was back in May compared to where it was in June. This is the most recent data that I could find. And so we look at those top 15 states. We look at all those states in the Northeast and even below that, and we see a trend here. So the first bar is going to be the unemployment percentage in May, so May 30th, and then the second bar is going to be June. And so we see here in Alabama, back in May it was close to 10%, and in June it actually dropped down to 3.7%. We move on to West Virginia, 13%, and then dropped down to 5%. It really was the case for all of these states except for the District of Columbia. They actually saw a jump from May to June I'm not sure why, but I can see this trend is that unemployment is actually going down, which is a good thing. And then we can kind of see that in this line chart here as well. We see this top line is the May unemployment rate by region. So we can see here along the bottom, the Great Lakes, Northeast, Northwest, as you can see there. And so here we see the Great Lakes back in May was at 11%. And then in June, it actually dropped down to 5%. We see that across the board, across the country, unemployment is dropping as businesses reopen and governments allow people to go back out. So we've identified which states have experienced the worst unemployment. We've identified which regions have been most impacted, and the unemployment trend, we see that it's going down. So what's going to happen next? Where do we go from here? So I see really 4 big impacts to unemployment moving forward. So the first one here is the social distancing. Like, are Americans going to feel like they're done with the social distancing? They need to get back out. They need to go to restaurants, go to bars, go to theme parks, wherever. And in doing so, employ people across the country. Is that going to happen? Number 2, is there a vaccine that's going to come out? You know, this could all turn around in the next 6 to 9 months. If a vaccine comes out, it's effective, and we really see that those people continue to go out and revisit those businesses that previously had laid off employees. Number 3, are we going to see some kind of government in action in terms of jobs? So civil works projects. This could be a great opportunity to improve the infrastructure of the country with all these people who are unemployed, possibly skilled laborers who we can put to work building back up the infrastructure. And then number 4, obviously the upcoming election. You know, what's going to happen with, is Trump going to continue to promote opening the country back up for his own political gain? Are the Republicans going to do that in order to continue to hold Congress seats? And then what kind of retaliation are the Democrats going to use with that? You know, if the Republicans continue to open up, if people continue to get sick, what kind of backlash is there going to be? And then possible re-shutdown and continued loss of jobs. So we've talked a little bit about where unemployment is happening, where it's trending, and then what impacts that we could have in the future. This is all derived from really one data source on Tableau on the coronavirus dashboard. So I thank Stephen Shoemaker for compiling this data and allowing us to use it in further studies. Thanks.